she got an email from somebody in the sales department at her publisher saying, "Oh, you've been nominated for the Daphne du Maurier Award."
Is it best suspense novel?
Yeah.
I think it would be with du Maurier.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
she wrote.
exactly what it was. And Vicky, of course, said, "Hey, great, what's that?" You know, and no one seemed to know. And anyway, she won.
Terrific.
I don't think we were able to find out what other books were. I mean, that's an amazing thing to get an award. The best mystery suspense. I mean, it comes out of the Romance Writers of America, and her books are anything but romances.
Well, there is a Daphne du Maurier festival every year in England, in Cornwall, where where she lived, and I didn't know if it was connected with that or if it was something completely different.
I don't
Simon
really know.
& Schuster sponsors an annual Mary Higgins Clark Award.
Yes, I know that.
For suspense, and I've always thought, and I think there's been at least one Canadian winner. So you know. Well, I'll see what I can find out, but I was really happy to see that.
Oh, no, it was
a nice kudo for, or as P.D. James would say, kudos, which I love, for Vicky. So that's very encouraging.
Wonderful,
And now you have also written a ton of nonfiction. I've got a whole list here because I went to your website, williamgtapley.com. I love all your websites. They make life easier. But I printed off a list here, and a lot of this is, in fact, about fishing and life outdoors. Bass bug fishing, a fly fishing life.
I know, that's what you were waiting for.
Home water, near and far, whatever. I sort of like the one, opening day and other neuroses. What in the world is that?
I've had a checkered career. I write a lot of stuff in magazines, and what I mostly write is not hardcore how to catch fish and stuff like that. It's more essays and whimsy and humor and stuff like that. And so every 3 or 4 years, I've always had a publisher who has been very eager to gather them together and to publish them between hardcovers. So that was my opening day. Of course, the opening day of the fishing season is what my story was about, and a lot of the stuff in the book had to do with how neurotic fishermen are and that kind of thing. Problem was that I went in a bookstore to see if they had my book, and it was filed under baseball.
Oops.
Opening day baseball.
Oh, sure.
See,
oh, Lord, yes, I see.
So,
it could have been grouse. I mean, if you were into the British whole deal.
It could have been a lot of things, I know.
The 12th of August. See, I know that. That is the day of the grouse or is it the pheasant? I think it's grouse. But whatever. It's one of the big bird shooting seasons. And, you know, Edwardian gentlemen would go on these enormous shoots with... I've done that once. Do you know that?
Did you really?
On an estate in England. It was a lovely... and I was really kind of embarrassed because they asked me if I wanted to have a gun and shoot. My father was a terrific skeet shooter and did a lot of hunting, but I wasn't particularly great with that kind of shooting. I could do some handguns, but I wasn't any good. And I almost said yes, and then something said to me, wait a minute, and I tried to figure out how much money, because they rent out, you know, the shoot, and I thought, you know, he's giving me an opportunity that's going to cost him thousands of dollars if I take a gun that... And so I said no. So I was one of the people that collected the birds. So I could go out, you know, and do the whole bit where they bring you hot whiskey at 11 and the whole bit.
I grew up bird hunting in New England, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Wild birds, just go into the woods with my dog.
Probably didn't have catered lunches where they brought champagne and all.
No, we had corned beef and American cheese sandwiches that my mother made.
This was a very ritualistic.
No, I know.
Fabulous. But I can see that opening day would mean different things to different people.
Right, I know. It was a stupid title, as it turned out, for that reason, because it didn't conjure up fishing.
Well, let's see. You've done one for Orvis, a pocket guide to fly fishing, and then a new book, Trout Flies?
Trout Eyes.
Oh, eyes. Sorry, my eyes are not doing well. Trout Eyes, which is your 2007 title.
Right.
What's that?
Well, it's just another collection. I say it that way. It's wonderful, amusing, and informative and entertaining stuff, but it's just a collection of stuff previously printed.
Gotcha. So your present plans are to go on with Brady and to go on with Stoney.
Yeah, that's my plan.
And sadly, not to go on.
Yeah.
Phil, although I did hear from Suzanne that she and Shirley, Phil's widow, are finishing up his last novel. I guess he had been working on it.
There's one coming out, I know, in June. He had started another one. Now this I know this, and I think he'd written 3 or 4 chapters. And no, I mean, Phil and I emailed every day, so
right.
And he had no idea what was going on. Typical of him. You know, he was floundering around looking for a story and getting characters in motion and doing all that. There is Shirley and Phil's son Jamie are talking about seeing if they can take that and make a book out of it.
Well, they must be, or Suzanne wouldn't be working with them. I mean, I just heard from Suzanne
unless it's with the one that has already been accepted and is coming out in June.
I see what you mean. Finishing that one up.
Yeah.
I thought he might have completed one because publishing works so far ahead.
I know.
That he might easily have had one all done before.
Yeah. Well, he did. He had that one done.
Now, can you remind me, because Phil came out here and did a conference that we did at the Poison Pen, and we published the papers at the conference,
Yep.
and it was his topic. I think you came in different years, because he came out, I think, when we did one about art and architecture, and he talked about the whole made-up thing he had to do for his book on the vineyard where the Vikings had landed. Do you remember that? And there were runes and, runes, R-U-N-E, and all the rest of it. And he talked about how interesting it was to sort of create a whole, it was almost like writing science fiction where you have to create a whole universe.
Yeah.
I think you came with the one where we talked about professions, because John Dunning was there.
Yep.
But we do actually have a paper from each of you in print from the press in these reference books about,
You printed those talks between 2 covers, and I have one at home.
Yes, I really am very fond of them. But you know, the first one we did in that series was nominated. I'm an Edgar nominee, I want you to know. And it's because I edited that first one.
Yeah.
And that was the very first book we published, and it was nominated for an Edgar. So I thought, well, how hard can this be?
Yeah, really.
And
I know. Yeah.
But I'm very pleased that, to have had Phil preserved like that.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm very glad that we have the paper with you.
It was Phil who introduced me to you.
That's right.
At some voucher con, I can't
was,
remember.
yeah.
Breakfast, I think.
And I've been very grateful to him ever since. Well,
me too.
I'm sure that we will think about him over the years. It's wonderful. A lot of people die and only leave a mark on the people that knew them.
I know.
Yeah, one of the wonderful things, I think, for a writer is that, you're able to have left in ways you can't even imagine marks on people that, will go on forever. And I think that's a pretty special thing.
Well, Phil loved being a writer. There's a stone in his yard. Philip R. Craig is the dates, birth, and death writer, and it's in Courier.
Wow, that's so nice.
That was what he wanted.
I'm sure he did. He's a great guy, very modest too. Thank you for sharing all those memories with me.
Well, my pleasure, Barbara.
It was really nice to see you here. Thanks for coming, and I thank all of you for coming, joining us today.